Hello, very good evening to everyone. Welcome to this space, a special event organized by Equilibrium Coaching Company. My name is Paula Otero. I am a psychologist, specialist in emotional well-being, and an international life coach, accredited by the CLC, Latin American Coaching Community, the IAC, International Association of Coaching, and the PCA, Professional Coaching Alliance. With more than 10 years of experience in educational settings, supporting teachers, administrators, and educational leaders in their well-being and professional development. It is an honor for me to be with you this evening. Today, we are gathered to talk about a very important topic in the lives of educators, teacher-work disconnection, the art of taking care of your time without neglecting your commitment. We are truly very happy to have you here and to share this space for learning and reflection together. Before we begin, I would love for those who are joining us right now to write in the chat your name and the city you are joining us from. We are honestly so glad to see how the community is growing and connecting from all over the world. Now then, if you have any questions or perhaps also if you would like to share your experiences, you can do so in the chat and leave that information there. You can write them, and at the end of the live session, we will be answering each of your questions. I also want to take this opportunity to share our social media with you. Where you can find us, I invite you to follow us. We also share resources, tools, and special content on our social media, all designed to strengthen teachers' well-being and motivation. And not just for teachers, but also for other professionals from all fields. You can find us on Instagram as Equilibrium Coaching Company and also as Jairo.florepilamizar, Edgar Ramirez 7706, and myself, Pes Juliet Paola.ot. On Facebook, you can find us as Equilibrium Coaching Company and on our YouTube channel as well under the same name, Equilibrium Coaching Company. I invite you to immediately hit the subscribe button so you can receive notifications about our upcoming events. And also, to let you know that we have a Facebook community called Educadores en Equilibrium. I invite you to join so you can receive all the information, valuable information that we share from the company, upcoming events, and the opportunity to interact with more education professionals. Now then, tonight I am joined by outstanding members of the Equilibrium team, Dr. Jairo Flores, and the director and founder of Equilibrium Coaching Company, Edgar Ramirez, who will be with us sharing contributions and ideas for strategies and experiences that will truly be very valuable. I want to give you a warm welcome and thank you for being here to share your knowledge. Good evening, Jairo. Good evening, Edgar.
Hello, Paula. How are you? Good evening, yes, to all of you. My name is Jairo Flores. I am a teacher, physical education, first and foremost, with more than 25 years of experience and a specialist in education for recreation, master's degree in research methodology and a doctorate in applied sciences for physical activity and sport, and also an international life coach endorsed by the PCA, the CLC, and the IAC. Good evening, Edgar. How are you?
Good night, Jairo. Good night, Paula. And good night to everyone who's with us tonight. I'm Edgar Ramirez. As Paula mentioned earlier, I am the director and founder of Equilibrium Coaching Company, a company dedicated to supporting teachers and providing them with strategies to help them improve both personally and professionally. With more than 25 years of experience in the educational field, both as a teacher and as an administrator, I found myself needing to seek out the right tools specifically to help teachers in that profound and significant transformation that happens every single year, in that truly formative and essential process, which is so incredibly important for each and every one of us to perform at 100% of our full potential in the classroom environment. I am the author of a book that was published 2 months ago, Life Reborn, which is precisely about how we can find tools to transform ourselves and how we can respond to the difficulties that life throws our way. In about 2 months, the book will be available in Spanish for those who wish to purchase it. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you so much for being here. And let's open up the space to start with tonight's topic. As Paula mentioned earlier, any questions, any questions or comments you have, you can write them directly in the chat and we will be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you, Edgar, and thank you, Jairo, for the warm welcome. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this topic that concerns every one of us as educators. How can we achieve work disconnection without losing our professional commitment? So I invite you all to pay close attention and take note of the tips that will be shared tonight. To start this conversation, I want to welcome, or rather give the floor, I've already welcomed him, to Dr. Jairo Flores with a key question. Jairo. Dr. Jairo, from your experience, what is work disconnection?
Well, thank you very much, Paula. Yes, work disconnection is the right that every worker has to not deal with work-related matters outside of their established working hours. This includes calls, emails, messages, and administrative tasks. But since we are focused on the teaching field, this also means respecting working hours, avoiding overload outside the classroom, and ensuring real time for rest and personal life. When we talk about work disconnection, we are not talking about being irresponsible or completely neglecting our work, especially in this teaching profession, which is often so demanding from every perspective, emotional, physical, and family wise. There are some real life examples of people who are unable to disconnect from work, such as checking emails outside of established hours, something that happens very often to teachers, bringing work home on weekends, or feeling unnecessary guilt, a kind of guilt that Edgar will discuss in more detail later on. It's that unnecessary guilt about saying no to extra tasks, right? One of the biggest consequences that can result from the lack of this work-life disconnection is chronic stress, emotional exhaustion, and obviously the impact on physical health and personal relationships. This phenomenon is closely related to what is widely known as burnout syndrome, a significant and pervasive issue that has been extensively discussed and analyzed in recent years. Indeed, it is now officially recognized by the World Health Organization as one of the major and most pressing health problems of the 21st century, impacting individuals globally.
Okay, Jairo, thank you very much for that answer. Thank you for such a clear explanation. Well, Jairo, according to your input, work disconnection is a very necessary action that must be carried out, and all professionals should practice it. In the case of teachers, it's a bit more difficult, isn't it? Because it involves respecting work hours, avoiding taking work home, and ensuring real time for rest and personal life. As you clearly showed us, Jairo, it's not about being irresponsible, but about finding a balance that prevents medium or long-term consequences. I think, for example, of stress, emotional exhaustion, the deterioration of interpersonal relationships, because that too can be negatively affected, right?
Exactly.
Well, Jairo, thank you once again for that valuable contribution. The truth is, it helps us understand a bit more about the importance of this topic. Now, Dr. Jairo, I want to bring up another key question regarding this subject. Why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard to achieve work disconnection in the educational field?
Yes, specifically in the educational field, this is so difficult because it also stems from a combination of structural, cultural, and personal factors that create a very complex scenario. Being a teacher is not just a profession. Being a teacher is also a calling, and many times this translates into the belief, shaped by external or internal factors, that you have to give everything for the students, even at the expense of your own well-being, right? And that's true. The teachers who are listening to me, and I say this as a teacher myself because it has happened to me too, and I'm sure that many teachers are relating to this, right? The idea that a good teacher is always available is also something that teachers themselves internalize and is deeply rooted, isn't it? This leads to a bit of romanticizing self-exploitation and self-sabotage as part of being a teacher, as a person, It's not easy because it's expected that the teacher is always available for students, for school administrators, for immediate supervisors, and that's why you see teachers replying to messages, answering emails, or even worse, taking phone calls outside of regular working hours, which are already designated for teachers to do their work. It's also true that many educational institutions neither set nor respect boundaries from the start or those established by the teacher, and that's an issue closely related to organization and educational administration. Additionally, proper communication channels are often not respected either. Nowadays, it's already been established that WhatsApp is also an official communication channel, but even so, there are still specific hours for sending messages so that teachers don't feel, in one way or another, overwhelmed by their work. It's no secret to anyone. A teacher's work doesn't start or end in the classroom because, as we all know very well, they have to prepare lesson plans, write reports, and grade their students' assessments and assignments. And the truth is that most of these tasks are done outside of official working hours, always encroaching on personal time. Not disconnecting also becomes a way to catch up, which perpetuates the cycle, always staying informed about what's happening in the school. And these are habits so deeply ingrained in teachers that it's very hard for them to set them aside. It's true that the use of new technologies has helped us perform better in our teaching roles, both in the quality of what teachers prepare and in the quality of what they deliver. But at the same time, these digital platforms and all this technology also blur the line between teachers' working hours and their personal lives, don't they? Instead, I think teachers have realized this. Rather than making things easier for us in our work, it has actually intensified it even more. It has given us more work, made things heavier, and increased our stress because teachers are now always connected without any kind of break. And we could mention a whole series of other factors and situations that make it so difficult for teachers to disconnect from work. But I think it's mainly what I just mentioned, Paula. Although, if you allow me, I can go deeper into some other points, but there are many factors that definitely make it very hard to disconnect from work.
Well, Jairo, honestly, you just gave us some actions that many of us who have worked in the educational field have applied, have carried out, right? And I think that many teachers who are connected with us here feel identified with this. Jairo, thank you very much for giving us such a thorough context with this information. In short, in your own words as well, we see that the difficulty in achieving that work-life disconnection for teachers doesn't depend solely on personal willpower, but also, I would say, on a combination of structural, cultural, and why not, emotional factors. Among these, Mairo, is the idea that teachers must always be available, as you were saying, always connected, and the lack of clear boundaries. The administrative workload that invades personal time is another factor, as is the constant use of technology, which, as you were also pointing out, plays a role. All of this, Jairo, blurs the boundaries between work and personal life. Additionally, self-imposed pressure and the guilt that many feel when disconnecting also contribute, further fueling this cycle of overload.
Exactly. Exactly. Just today, I was listening to a podcast about how many people, not just those in teaching, feel guilty because, say, it's Sunday at 2 in the afternoon and they decide to watch a movie or do absolutely nothing, even though it's really necessary. And yet, there's still this feeling of guilt. These are issues that teachers carry with them that become so deeply rooted. They turn them into a reality that's also very hard to let go of, to set aside in order to enjoy such a necessary rest.
Absolutely, Jairo, and that also creates a sense of balance for oneself, doesn't it? In both your personal and professional life. Well, Dr. Jairo, thank you very much for that reflection. It really helps us better understand the background of this reality.
All right.
With that, we now move on to our next speaker, Edgar Ramirez, who will continue to delve deeper into this topic. Welcome, Edgar, and thank you again for joining us in this space. To start your talk, Edgar, I'd like to pose a very important question that arises regarding this topic. What myths and realities exist around teachers' work disconnection?
Thank you very much, Paula. That's a very interesting question. And since you mentioned it, I was paying very close attention to what Dr. Jairo was sharing. And everything really starts before we even talk about myths and realities. I'd like to talk about the importance of understanding that there are beliefs that limit us and prevent us from moving forward. So, if we genuinely do not adequately address the crucial mental aspect of our well being in a truly proactive or highly efficient manner, then absolutely anything we consciously do or inadvertently do not do will profoundly affect us in various significant ways. Let's remember that at Equilibrium Coaching Company, we are trying to establish or create and share strategies precisely to achieve a balance between mind, body, and spirit, right? These are three extremely important factors for maintaining balance in life and being able to move forward both personally and professionally. So, if we don't start working on that mental aspect, and this is where I bring up the first myth, and we start thinking that if I don't respond immediately, I become a bad professional or I'm not professional, that's where we might be starting to make a mistake. The reality is that a job well done doesn't depend on the speed of a response, but on the activity and effectiveness with which it is done. So realize how important it is to start thinking that this is a limiting belief. And pay attention to this. It's not just at the level, as Dr. Jairo was saying, it's not just at school or in a professional setting, it's in all professional environments. We tend to think that if we don't do it right away, then we're bad professionals. Yes, that's where it comes in. Or where clarity, relevance, and effectiveness play an important role. So we start to play with quantity versus quality. What can we do? It's not the same to reply to an email in 30 seconds as soon as it arrives, just answering with any response, as it is to take the time to actually respond to the email effectively. So, what could we do in these cases? As teachers, we need to understand that it is extremely important to set specific times to check messages or emails, whether at the beginning or at the end of the school day. The same applies in any professional field. If we establish a strategy that allows us, especially when it comes to messages and emails, to respond in an efficient and high quality way, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon, we can start working more effectively, we can be more proactive. The second myth that exists, again, not just in education, but in any professional field, is that if I'm not available 24 hours a day, then I'm not showing commitment. Of course, this might not apply to doctors, firefighters, or nurses. For people in the healthcare field who sometimes have to be there 24/7. But when it comes to teachers who keep their phones on and are answering messages, emails, whether from school administrators or from parents themselves at midnight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and yes, there have been cases like this, if they feel that if we're not available 24/7, then we're not committed to the institution. And that's where we fall into the mistake of starting to wear ourselves out. Because there are many workplace cultures that actually glorify always being connected. And so that's seen as a sign of dedication and responsibility. But this leads to never disconnecting, which is actually the opposite of professionalism. What's the reality? The reality is that if we don't disconnect, we're going to be physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted. So, what could we do in this case? It's important to set clear boundaries. Replying to emails after a certain hour using automatic messages. There is responsibility, but also self respect. Another myth that has also been seen, has been observed in educational institutions, is that the more hours I work, the more I progress. It turns out that productivity decreases after a certain point. Overworking leads to fatigue, mistakes, and rework. That's why it's important to sometimes use techniques like the Pomodoro technique, which we've already discussed in previous live sessions. We have a set amount of work time, 25 minutes, work 5 minutes of rest, 5 minutes of disconnecting so that the brain can rest, the mind can take a break, and that way we can continue working more actively. All right. The last myth I want to talk about without making this talk too long is precisely this. If I don't do the work, and this happens to a lot of people, if I don't do the work, no one else can do it well, right? Because we tend to think that if it's not done, thank you, the way I do it, no one else has the ability to do it. And so many teachers believe that delegating means risking quality, right? And that leads them to accumulate tasks unnecessarily. What can we do? Well, we could train people so they can start doing the work. Even if it takes a little time, they can start doing the work, and we start to direct them, we start to guide them, we start to follow up with them. And just to be clear, following up is not micromanagement. It's simply helping those people understand that they can support us too. And that way, we can also disconnect a little and get out of that accumulation of tasks we face every day.
Well, Edgar, thank you very much for giving us so many ideas that we tend to normalize. We've seen that disconnecting from work doesn't mean a lack of commitment. On the contrary, it's a way to take care of our energy so we can perform better.